Hi, I'm Pax, and today is the release of the new Archetype Tim Henson X. I got to test it before the launch, and in this video, we will talk about the changes they made. And if this is your first time seeing the Archetype Tim Henson, if you know the band Polyphia, this is the software plugin that has all the tools you will need to get their tone. So first, let's talk about the changes from the previous version, and after that, a quick walkthrough to the plugin. Tara, let's check it out. Alright, first of all, what are the X versions? You might still be confused as to why Neural DSP releases these duplicate plugins. Well, primarily, the reason for the X updates is to prepare the plugins for Quad Cortex integration. That means you can load your favorite Polyphia tones on the Quad Cortex, but spoiler alert, you will never get to see these good-looking artworks once it's loaded on the Quad. Here's what Gojira looks like. Yeah, a bunch of effects blocks. But we are here for the sound, right? But aside from the Quad Cortex compatibility, the X versions have updates to the old ones to give you better experience, sometimes better sound. Anyway, if you're just using the plugins, these updates come free if you already have the old license, or should we say legacy version. Alright, now let's talk about the changes they made for the Archetype Tim Henson X. Let's start with the features that come with the UI of the XS. The Tim Henson now has a transpose feature. This lets you change the pitch of your guitar, very handy for songs that require E-flat standard or even C standard. Next, it now has a doubler, which is one of the coolest features of the X, as this makes your tone thicker with just one click. It gives you this double track sound. Next, of course, is the new tuner with the live tuner mode. This is actually a Cortex control feature. Well, now it's available in the plugins. This allows you to have a small live tuner at the bottom of the UI. This is very handy, especially when you are recording. And lastly, the standalone app now has a metronome. Yeah, because you need a metronome to practice Tim Henson songs. Okay, now off to the effects. First to notice are the design of some of the effects. 3 of them have slight redesign. The multi-voicer, the EQ, and the delay. It's not much of a change, but they added some useful functions. For the multi-voicer, it now has harmonic minor and melodic minor scales. These are more complex scales which sounded weird from the old multi-voicer because the notes keep clashing to each other. Now they will be properly tracked. Next is the EQ. It now has high pass and low pass filters. These are very useful tools for cleaning up excess low end and high end frequencies. And for the delay, not much of a change actually. For the time knob, they swapped the positions of the text of the BPM and note subdivision. But you know what I find useful? They finally added context to what the types of delay do. So when you choose diffusion, you will see that it adds more amount of diffusion. When you go to V Digital, it says downsampling, so it adds more glitches. For modern, it adds more saturation. For the presets, nope, they did not add new presets. It's the same artist, it's the same number of presets. So that pretty much covers the newly added features on the Archetype Tim Henson X. There's not much actually. But again, it's a free update. And if you have a quad cortex, it will be compatible very soon. Alright, now let's do a quick walkthrough of this plugin. For this part, we're gonna use an Ibanez TOD10. Shout out to my good friend Carl Gonzalez for lending me this guitar. So I'm gonna put my MacBook on clamshell mode so you will see this beauty. Alright, let's check out the amplifiers. This plugin has 3 amplifiers. The Roses. This amp is designed for acoustic guitars or guitars with a piezo pickup. It's great for songs like Playing God, but I really can't play that. We're not really gonna talk about this amp because I don't have a guitar that has a piezo. Next is the Cherubs. This is the clean channel. Some say it's based on a Vox amplifier, and it's the amp Polyphia uses for G.O.A.T. Last one is the Pink, and this is the high gain amp. Some say it's based off a Marshall JCM 800, but in my opinion, it's not as gainy or as hairy as a typical Marshall. That might be because of the cab they used. It sounds a bit dark and muddy. I think the goal here was to capture the tonal characteristics of the Orange Dark Terror since Polyphia used that amp before. Now before we get into effects, I need to remind you that if you want to get as close to Polyphia's tone as possible, you need a super strat with a 5-way switch. That's because Tim Henson frequently uses positions 2 and 4 for that out-of-phase twangy tone. Something like this, or this. So if you're using a Les Paul or a PRS Custom 24, it's gonna be harder to nail that sound because those guitars tend to be thicker and muddier. Alright, for the effects, Tim Henson uses 3 stomp boxes, the boost, a compressor, and an overdrive. The 2 most important effects here are the boost and compressor. These are key to achieving Tim Henson's paper-like compression in songs like G.O.A.T and ABC. In his G.O.A.T preset, Tim uses the Cherub at max gain, but on its own, it doesn't have much breakup. That's where the boost comes in. It adds more edge to the tone. And the bass knob is also set to max to give the sound more body. Next, he uses compressor to even out the notes. It's set really high but with slow attack, so the picking dynamics still come through. Without these 2 pedals, Tim Henson's tone wouldn't just be the same. Now for the overdrive, which looks a lot like a tube screamer, it is mainly used to boost the pink, just like how you'd use a tube screamer with a typical Marshall amp. Now let's talk about the multi-voicer, which Tim Henson uses a lot in his newer songs. Let me show you how it works. First, set the key and scale to match the song you're playing. For example, Neurotica is in B major, so you'd select B and major scale. Next, in the voicing section, you can choose which notes in the scale will be harmonized with the notes you play. You can adjust the levels and pannings of each harmony using the sliders or the display. There's also an option to add the delay to the harmonies, which helps create a wider sound. Now for the EQ, as I mentioned earlier, it now has low pass and the high pass filters, and it works like any other EQ. Now let's move on to Tim Henson's post effects, chorus, delay, and reverb. The chorus is the most important one. It gives Tim Henson his signature chimey sound. Okay, for the reverb and delay, these work like they do in other neural DSP plugins, but Tim mainly uses reverb for his clean tones, no delay. And he only uses delay for lead parts to add more dimension to his tone. Alright, so that's the Archetype Tim Henson X. If you're interested in this plugin, the links are in the description below. If you already own the legacy Archetype Tim Henson, this update is free for you. If not, this bad boy is 30% off until Feb 24, so grab it while you can. Happy gas! Ako si Pax, hanggang sa muli, tugtog lang!